You may be seated. We again want to welcome Dr. JeJe Noval. Okay. And for those who may not have heard this morning, she is from Loma Linda University with Allied Health and teaches nutrition to many, many students and does some private work as well, counseling as well. So praise the Lord. Welcome. Glad to have you here with us.
Thank you, Pastor Pennant, for the never-ending warm welcome that I continually receive from you and all of your amazing family members. Okay. Should we, hello, hello? Testing? Testing.
I think I hear it.
Hello? Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Did you turn it?
Oh, I thought I turned it on.
It's still on red. What's it say? Low battery.
Oh, that's...
It is a low battery. It'll start later.
Yeah. Okay. So, stand to the rescue. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
You can use this if you want.
Okay. In the meantime, while Stan is taking care of this, and thank you for the delicious food at lunch. It's always amazing when we come here. So thank you so much. I feel the love, always the love through your words and the food. So,
This is okay.
okay, it should be okay now. Okay, let's see. Let me do this. Hello, testing, testing, testing. Is it working without that mic? Hello, testing.
You can turn it up.
Okay. It should be on. Hello, hello. Testing, testing. Does it say mute?
It says mute.
This one says mic line. I could use the microphone if need be.
He says on mute. He knows which button.
It looks like mic line, but maybe not. Hello, testing.
On.
Testing, testing.
It's still muted.
It's
Huh.
okay. I could use that. Yeah. No worries. It's okay. I am so used to always having to make changes. Let me just do it. I can use the mic. Thank you. Okay, so here's the thing. Let me just share a little bit about my personal history. So I have been a dietitian for 30 years, and for the most part, I have taught students the traditional, conventional way of nutrition. And I'm just going to give a history of what I went through. So in my early 20s, I was put on every oral antibiotic known to man for my acne and topical. Did not know that that was part of the foundation that was laid down for my own gut community to go out of balance. But none of those medications worked to clear my acne, and I went through 3 dermatologists, so they put me on Accutane 4 times. It worked when I was on it, but the acne would come back. Oops, I need to start I always like to know my time frame. There we go. And then when I would get off the Accutane, acne would come back. Did not know, and I'm not going to blame my doctors for this, because they didn't know back then that would throw the gut out of balance too. And then in my later 20s, I was having issues with my monthly cycles. So what do they put you on? Birth control pills immediately. They don't ask about anything else. I thank God that I felt so sick on those for only being on them for 5 days. I can't even imagine how much my health would have been affected negatively if I was on it much longer, because birth control pills actually throw the gut out of balance even more. So early 30s, I had issues with horrendous bloating. My abdominal area would feel tight like this. It would be difficult to take a deep breath. And I've been singing since I was 2, and it would be so difficult to take those deep breaths to sing. And I remember a doctor telling me, JeJe, you just need to relax. And it's like, how can I relax if I can't take a deep breath? And so we figured things out, though, in a different kind of way. And then I had issues with a dry reflux cough for over a decade. And I would always cry because once it started, it would go on for months and months at a time. And those antacid medications, I would only want to be on those short term, but those would throw my gut out of balance even more, which I didn't know. So all these medications were setting me up for so many issues, GI-wise and hormonally speaking. And in my early 30s, I experienced hot flashes. You're not supposed to experience hot flashes in your 30s. My mom said, go see the doctor. And I knew better than that. I said, no, no. I'm going to figure this out. And I did with my nutrition. I tweaked things. And I thought, okay, I don't want to have to go through the other transitions of life, perimenopause, menopause, and into postmenopause, having to go on hormone replacement therapy. So I'm grateful to God that to this day, I don't need those, now being on this end of life, post-menopause. But with all the reflux that I haven't had to use any antacids for 6 years now. And so I'm grateful to God because I went back to get more training. I was getting very disgruntled and just unhappy with the way I was helping people. Like it would only be helpful at a surface, like Western medicine, what are your symptoms? Here are the medications. And that was with nutrition too. Oh, you have high blood sugars? Okay, well, here's the meal plan. I knew there was more to it than just that. And getting more training into the integrative and functional medicine world has made the difference, and that is what this presentation is going to bring to you today. Something that's not traditional, but something that is very non-traditional. And so now, because of how good I feel, I am on a crusade to help as many of you and others to feel good without being dependent on always medication. Medication is not bad. God created medication and we need it for certain situations, but not everything should be addressed with medication. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of background about what I will talk about, some problems, and then some action steps that you all can take. So the gut, oh wow, the gut has finally been given a lot of spotlight, especially in the past 10 years, but even more so recently. And when I continually study this and look at this, I can't help but see that there is a creator, that there is God who designed our bodies. And when, yes, amen for sure, when we understand how God designed us, then we can take care of our bodies accordingly. So our brain, it is called the second, our gut is called the second brain. And when you think of our brain, it's what helps us think. It's what helps us figure things out. It does so many things for us that we can't live without it. And then our gut, the brain and the gut continuously talk together bi-directionally. And our gut will send messages up to our brain send messages to our gut. So for instance, if you are continuously sad or depressed because of whatever is happening, your gut will say, you haven't been happy. You've been on the side of depression there. Well, then that means I'm going to react accordingly. And then if your gut is out of balance, then your brain will say, whoa, what is going on down there? Well, okay, I'll be anxious, I'll get depressed, because you're not sending me good signals. So it is so important for us to optimize our gut health and our hormone health in order for all of these organs to work really well with each other. And so the gut microbiota is our community that we take around with us wherever we go. If you ever think, oh, I'm alone in this room, there's nobody here with me, you got some friends with you right here in your GI tract. I mean, of course, our angels are always with us. God is always with us. But never feel alone, because our gut community, it has all of these microorganisms that help us. Bacteria, yeah. Bacteria is good for us. It can actually help us when we have more of the good bacteria. We have fungus, we have viruses, we have something that's similar to bacteria called archaea. And so God created them to be in there for us to help us with our immune system. So for the longest time, we've been saying that our gut microbiota, our community, has about 100 trillion microbial cells. And I was wondering, is that number still correct? Well, now there's some research saying that it's more than like 60 trillion, not quite 100 trillion. But regardless, it's still in the trillions. It's still a lot, right? It's still incredible. And you will hear a lot of people say microbiome instead. I'm a teacher, so I like to use words that are more correct, more precise. So whenever I hear microbiome, I'm like, not quite, but I know what they mean. So when we say microbiota, we are talking about all the microorganisms collectively. When people say gut microbiome, they are specifically talking about the genes of all the different microorganisms. So it's a collection of all the genes. Microbiome is the genes. But you will keep hearing me say gut microbiota. And incredible how God designed our gut microbiota to house 70% of our immune system. So if we don't take care of our gut health, then that's why we could get easily sick. That's why we can catch colds easily. And, when they looked at patients who didn't do well with COVID, they do say that there is this triad connection with inflammation. So inflammation and a gut that is out of balance. And I can't remember the third thing, but they always connected it to an imbalanced gut community, those who did not do very well. So that's why really optimizing this is going to be so important. I know there's a lot of text on this slide, but it's basically to tell you the importance of this area in our body. So the gut, it controls the amount of bad bacteria, which we call pathogenic bacteria, and that it presents in the GI tract. Let's see, does it have, oh, yay, okay. Let's see, it's stimulation of the immune system. So as I mentioned, 70% of our immune system is there. It is regulating so many of our nutrients and neurotransmitters. So that's why depression, anxiety, it shouldn't be treated right away with antidepressants, medications like that. That shouldn't be the first line of action, because it's rebalancing our gut community. When the gut community is out of balance, it will then affect us being able to produce neurotransmitters that help us feel good, like serotonin, and then melatonin to help us sleep well. So again, that's why it's so important to work on our gut health. It regulates cell renewal. The gut microbiota produces vitamins and enzymes, and on and on and on. So let's take a look at the gut really closely. So our gut is lined with all these cells, and they are called enterocytes. So if you can go back to your biology days, you'll see that a cell has a nucleus, right? I'm sure you remember that. It has mitochondria. That is where our powerhouse is for energy. However, okay, so let's look at the left side where it says eubiosis. The word eubiosis is what we always try to aim for. That means that we have a good balance of our microorganisms. That means we have more of the beneficial bacteria versus the bacteria that is not so beneficial, as well as the viruses and the fungus. So eubiosis is what we want. And so if we look here, so these are the enterocytes from the previous slide, but now they are in a rectangle shape, and they are supposed to be beside each other. It should be tight. Nothing should go through there. And over here, the blue guys represent the beneficial bacteria. That's what we want most of our community to consist of. The purple represents the less beneficial bacteria and perhaps viruses and fungus. And this is basically the same idea. It's just represented by a different artist. And down here is where our bloodstream is located. Up here is our GI tract, like where undigested food goes through, toxins go through, medications go through. And so it's just supposed to go through here, out the door. It's not supposed to go into our bloodstream. So our gut, the lining of the gut, it protects us from experiencing the effects of the toxins and undigested food and other things that might be passing through. All right, so I'm pretty sure you've heard of good old Hippocrates, and he has said this: all disease begins in the gut. I believed this for the longest time, and now I've added a question mark. So, is it really true? To a certain degree, yes, but what really begins our medical conditions? What are the outside factors that affect our gut? Well, we're going to take a look at that. So now I say I semi-agree with Hippocrates because diseases can potentially begin from somewhere else, which then affect our gut. Okay, so the top part of this, homeostasis, that's telling you basically the same thing as eubiosis, that we are looking at the balance of all of this bacteria that we need. Now, the opposite of eubiosis is dysbiosis. Okay, so EU means normal, equal, even, normal, eubiosis. Dysbiosis, it means that, something is off, something isn't right, imbalance. So dysbiosis means there is an imbalance in the gut community. And so here's one form of dysbiosis. When we have a decrease in the good bacteria, that's one form of dysbiosis. This usually comes about when we don't eat enough variety of different foods, and especially when it comes to fruits and vegetables, whole grains and beans. If we're not rotating those, then we actually we don't get enough good bacteria. There will be a decrease. And then we can have an increase in the pathogenic or the not so good microorganisms. And I will tell you the reasons how we get here. And another version of dysbiosis is a reduction in the different kinds of good bacteria. So in addition to just, the good bacteria has decreased, but the variety goes down, and every single bacteria has its own forte. It has its own strength that it imparts to us as far as our health is concerned. Okay, so you might ask, well, how do you know if someone's gut community is out of balance? So this is just the test kit. I won't show you the actual test, but I personally like to use, with those that I work with, a test called the GI map. And it is a stool test, but it's not like the ones in the regular doctor's office. In the regular doctor's office, they might look at a few parasites and maybe H. pylori, and that's it. This one, it looks at the good bacteria, the not so good bacteria, let's see, parasites. It looks at parasites. It looks at candida. We all have candida. We all have fungus. But if we have an overgrowth, it causes issues. So it looks at all that. And to be honest, with all the people that I've worked with, including myself, I also did this too, no one has had a perfectly balanced gut community. As we get older, I think life just throws our gut out of balance. And because there are just so many reasons why. So I like using that so that I know specifically what probiotic strains to choose for you. I get people that send me a text who I haven't heard in a while. It'll start off with, "Oh, hey, friend." I'm like, are we really friends or just acquaintances? But no. "Oh, hey, friend. I just have a little quick question. What do you think is the best probiotic for me at my age?" And I'll say, "I wish I could tell you, but if I gave you any random probiotic, I might actually help you increase the growth of certain bacteria that might make things worse for you." So it's very important to individualize, okay? Because even the good bacteria, when it is overgrown, can cause issues in people. So this is one of the tests that I like to look at. And I did not put a picture. I thought about it after I sent in the slides, but hair tissue mineral analysis is amazing. Yes, blood work is good. It helps us to see what is going on at that moment that the blood was drawn. But hair tissue is a complement to blood work. It lets us see what has been going on in the past 3 months due to stress, because we tend to burn through certain minerals due to stress when we're not able to manage our stress. And so every person, that's different. And when I look at that and I see that sodium is off, potassium is off, because in the Western nutrition world, we have put the fear of God in every single person to not add salt or to cut back on the salt. I think we've actually been doing a disservice to everybody we tell that to, including those with high blood pressure. We need sodium and potassium to work together. And if we cut back too much on that, we are not able to produce enough stomach acid. And when that's affected, then the food that we eat with the bacteria in it, we're not able to kill off the bacteria, causing the overgrowth. So that's why I also like to look at hair tissue mineral analysis. And then also, I am a fan of nutrigenetics. It is so fun to see which nutrients we might have a challenge to in certain nutrients. That's why, while I was a vegetarian from when I was 15 to 30, I do believe now, seeing how my life has taken place, that that was actually the foundation of how my issues manifested because of the imbalances of minerals. And some people have certain gene variations to vitamin A, vitamin B12, and they think that, oh, if I eat this way, I'll be fine, when their gene variations tell them, no, actually, you need the active form of vitamin A or vitamin B12 or what have you, and you need the bioavailable sources of that from animal products. So every body is different. If you don't have those gene variations, then yeah, certain people could do really well on 100% plant-based, but every body is different. Just as long as the base of our meals come from plants, and then personalizing it according to how God made us can really maximize our health. Otherwise, if we think we should eat this way, there are some dietitians that only preach one way. It could be this way, and then some are just this way. When they need to see biological differences, that's what we need to look at in helping people. So here we go with dysbiosis. see these enterocytes or these cells, now we see that there is a little space in between these tight junctions. They're supposed to be tight, but when we have too much of, now we have more of the purple guys. These guys are more pathogenic or more of the undesirable bacteria or microorganisms. When we have too much of that, that increases inflammation in our gut community. And then if nothing is done about that, that can actually cause the lining of our GI tract cells to become permeable. And this is known as leaky gut. And so this picture shows the same thing. And if there is a little space in between there, then the toxins and the undigested food, all these things that are supposed to go out of our bodies will say, oh, hey, there's a little escape route here. Why don't we take a little detour and go right over here where they're not supposed to? And then it can leak into the bloodstream, then that can cause systemic inflammation. So instead of the inflammation just being in the gut, then it can circulate into the rest of our body, and that can cause many different medical conditions. So for some people, not all, okay, some people, when their gut community is out of balance, they can experience a lot of gas. It's normal. It's perfectly normal to have gas. But when it's in excess, that's not a good sign. If there's a lot of chronic bloating, not a good sign. If there's a lot of diarrhea or constipation or indigestion, these are the ways God designed our bodies to tell us, to scream at us and say, listen, you need to pay attention. Something needs to be done with your gut community. This quarter, I teach nutrition counseling, and I have my students choose a client from the community to only counsel them on general nutrition. They can't do all this fancy stuff yet, but just general nutrition. And I tell them, do not get clients who need help with their GI condition. Could be IBS, IBD, Crohn's, celiac. I said, no, you can't go there yet. You don't have that training yet. And then they have been so good at complying with that to what they think that their patients or their clients don't have these issues. And then this past week I was evaluating, because I have them video record their first session, second and third and fourth, so I can evaluate and give them feedback. Well, I cannot believe how many of them, their clients will say, oh, okay, I have to say this. I'm a GI dietitian, so talking about bowel movements is my language. Okay, we talk about that all the time. And when you tell me what your bowel movements are, it gives me a good idea of your health. Okay, so when I listen to this, when I'm watching the video, and the client is telling my student, oh, yeah, well, I do have a bowel movement every 2 to 3 days, and just brushes it off like it's no big deal, I'm mortified. I'm like, oh, no. Oh my. We need to go back and address this. But some people think it's okay. And then another student, her said, oh, I can go without a bowel movement for days and days on end. And I'm just like, why is this getting to be more common? And why are people not doing anything about it? And then there's this one senior lady who's one of those who plays pickleball excessively 15 hours a week. She'll tell me, oh, JeJe, I just have a little indigestion once in a while, and so I just take yogurt and I'm fine. I'm like, even having indigestion once in a while, that's already a sign that something is off. We should not have indigestion even once. So some people don't have any of this at all, but you could have this: IBS, gut diseases, candida, overgrowth, celiac, leaky gut, diabetes, obesity, PCOS, skin conditions, eczema or acne, Yeah, so I didn't realize my gut community was so out of balance. Liver disease, heart disease, late onset dementia, Parkinson's, cancer in the colon or rectum. This is not an exhaustive list, but basically what I have here is just to show you that it can lead to many other medical conditions, even if you don't have the GI symptoms itself. So then, what are some of the factors that make us have gut dysbiosis? Well, okay, there is a genetic factor in many of us, but the good news is today we know about epigenetics. With epigenetics, we can, to a certain degree, turn on or turn off certain genes according to our lifestyle, how we eat, how much we rest, how much we exercise, etc. So there's a genetic factor, but nutrition. I really should put diet because that's what everybody knows. I personally do not like to use the word diet because it has a connotation of I can't have this or I can't have that, but basically the word diet means what you eat. But I like to put nutrition. So how many of you have heard of the SAD diet? Yes, okay. Can you share with us what it stands for? Perfect, exactly, so true. So the majority of many Americans, those of us who live here, it is a lot of highly processed foods. Not that processed is bad, but highly processed, and not enough plant-based food items, and not enough fiber. But again, I like the fact that we were talking about, Pastor Pennick, at the end, you said, you captured my words of mindful moderation, because even with fiber, yes, we need fiber, but we shouldn't overdo it with fiber either. Otherwise, that causes issues as well. So with our nutrition, it's very important to see what works best for you, and every body is different. Okay, medications. Medications can also throw our gut out of balance. I've already mentioned the antibiotics, which we all know, but and acids can throw off the gut. Pain medications, opioids, just NSAIDs, every single pain medication, if you're taking it on a regular basis, can throw the gut out of balance. Antidepressants, that's another big one. Birth control pills, IUDs, all of those are very big into throwing the gut out of balance. Stress, unmanaged stress. Stress is good for us because it helps us get done what we need to get done. So that's not a bad thing. But when we have unmanaged stress, then guess what? The lining of our gut, those epithelial cells or the enterocytes, they start to become leaky when we are experiencing stress that we are not managing. It increases our cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone. It's not a bad hormone, but if we have too much of it, it makes that gut lining become permeable, and then that can lead to leaky gut and letting all those toxins leak into our bloodstream. Of course, our environment, there are smog, things like that around us that can also affect our gut community. But our sleep, if we are not prioritizing our sleep, that affects our gut community. It's not just quantity, but it's also quality as well. So all of these areas can really throw our gut out of balance, our gut community out of balance. Okay, so I have a little framework that I like to use. Okay, so the framework here is Live Gut Better. And let's look at the letter B. The letter B stands for Balance Blood Sugars. Okay, so why do we care about that? And you will say, I don't have diabetes, I don't have PCOS, I don't need to worry about that. I believe all of us should be mindful of our blood sugars. So the first line of of hormones that we should be mindful of is our insulin and cortisol. Insulin is produced by the pancreas. And when we eat food, it raises our blood sugars, and pancreas is supposed to produce insulin to help bring blood sugars down. In the traditional Western nutrition world, we're like, oh, it's a good thing. That's what pancreas is it's supposed to do. But if we either eat too much in one meal or the balance of our meal leans more on the carbohydrate side and not enough protein, then the pancreas will be like, whoa, guy, your blood sugars sure went up. I need to help you. So it will just try to shoot out more insulin. After a while, the pancreas is saying, oh, I've been working extra hard for you. And then you can then become insulin resistant. And then when our stress is not managed, we have too much cortisol being elevated. And then that raises blood sugars. So then the pancreas will say, whoa, you're so stressed and your blood sugars are spiking. Okay, I'll continue to produce more insulin for you. And then when this is out of balance, it can, oops, I didn't mean to go, then it will affect our thyroid hormones. It will slow down, the thyroid gland can get sluggish, and then when this is decreased, this affects our digestive system. Our digestive tract will slow down, and that can also lead to the overgrowth in our bodies. Then when that's off, it will affect estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So they need each other. The hormones need to have a good gut community, and the gut community needs a good balanced hormonal system. Okay, so how do we balance our blood sugars? May we never miss any meals. May we never skip any meals. Under eating. A lot of people think they're eating enough because they're afraid to gain weight, but we really need to eat more, some of us. Otherwise, the body is in a state of stress. And consume enough protein. And here's the thing, sometimes we're not aware that we need to eat more protein because we're so used to only eating a certain amount, but sometimes you need way more to help balance those blood sugars. And then carbohydrates have been given such a bad rap in social media and in media, and so many people are too fearful to eat enough carbohydrates, and so they don't eat enough. And then that can affect our thyroid hormones. It will not convert over to the active form. Okay, so we need to eat enough of the protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Yes, fat. That is where our hormones come from. Cholesterol. It's a good thing. And it is so important. I really should say avoid, but you know, that doesn't look good. It sends a message that people go, uh-oh, what is she saying? She's saying don't have it. But limit, okay, I'll say limit caffeine and really try to stay away from alcohol as much as possible because that throws the gut out of balance. But the caffeine, I just tell you, when I see students come in and they are dependent on caffeine, it just makes me so sad because it's affecting their adrenal system. And that's what produces our cortisol. It stresses out their systems. It makes cortisol levels go up. It makes blood sugars go up. So, yeah, those are action steps that you can take today, making sure you are eating enough, making sure you are not skipping meals. Okay, and then enjoy moving it. So we were talking about exercise this morning, and we do need to move it on a regular basis, but not overdo it. And the thing is, when we overdo our training, or we are running for more than an hour, or doing high intensity interval training for more than an hour, that raises cortisol levels. That affects the lining to become, gut lining to become permeable, causes it to be leaky. So you don't want to overtrain at all. Everything in mindful moderation. The first T stands for trust in the Lord. When we leave everything in His hands, what a difference it makes in our perception of stress. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not in your own understanding. and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. He promises that. That helps our stress levels come down. And then the second T is tune out toxins where you can. It's not possible to tune out all toxins. So where can we? In food, cookware, beauty products, household cleaning products, dental care products. But I will just focus on food. So as much as possible, if you can, try to choose organic. It doesn't mean that when you choose organic, there's no pesticide at all. There still will be some, but at least not as much. But don't stress yourself out if not everything can be organic. Containers, if you're using containers, when you're buying food, make sure it says BPA free. Bisphenol A is an endocrine disruptor. So there's a lot of canned goods out there, and that's why I like Sprouts, because they're canned goods. At least most of them now say BPA free. Trader Joe's needs to catch up. Yeah, try to choose BPA free, and when you're using containers, try to choose glass always. If you will do plastic, there are plastic that say BPA free. Cookware, it is best to use stainless steel or cast iron, because any of the ones that say, oh, non-stick, no bueno, not at all. It has a coating on there that is toxic. So when we're cooking our food, scrambling, whatever, we scratch it off, it gets mixed into our food, we consume it, and that can affect our gut health. It does make life easier, right, to clean, but it's so much better to go the stainless steel way as much as possible. And then E is eat well. You're like, oh, I know how to do that already. Well, okay, that's fine. But let's look at this. How do you eat? And what do you eat? All right, so you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you rush through your meals? How many of you only take a bite and then swallow? Okay, maybe 2 bites and then swallow. Or maybe, 3 bites and swallow. Okay, so here's the thing. This is incredible about how God designed us. He designed our mouths to have our teeth. So our teeth is not in our stomachs. It's not in our GI tract. There's a reason why it's here. It is to start breaking down food in our mouths, because that will help the digestive process take place. It breaks it down into the smaller sizes. And then the more we chew, the more we are producing more saliva. Incredible how God put the digestive enzymes to break down carbohydrates, to break down fats in our saliva. So that's why we really have to expose our food to our saliva by chewing and chewing and chewing our food for as long as it takes. Some people like numbers, so fine, 20 to 30 chews. If you don't like numbers, if you don't like numbers at all, just keep chewing until it feels like your food has melted. Because then you know that your food has been really exposed to your saliva. It's powerful what our saliva has. And when we chew our food, it tells our stomach, you got to do your job. And so what happens? The stomach says, oh, all righty, I'll do my job. And so it will start producing more stomach acid. And that's what we need, stomach acid, to kill off the undesirable bacteria that comes with our food. Okay, because if we're just eating fast, we're not producing enough saliva, we're not breaking it down, that's what can lead to gut dysbiosis. This is what can lead to so many of our medical conditions. And what we could do is slow down at our meals. When someone is praying for the meal, or you're praying, if you're praying silently, take 3 slow, deep breaths to get our bodies into the parasympathetic state, rest and digest. Okay? Otherwise, if you were working, you were at the computer, you were in a state of sympathetic state, high cortisol levels, and you're like, oh, it's time for me to eat lunch. And then you go and you eat your lunch, you're still in sympathetic state, but your digestive tract has not slowed down, because in sympathetic, it slows down so that you won't go to the bathroom to do number 2. It's like you're working, you're stressed. Well, you got to finish that task. But you need to tell your body, to signal your body, okay, it's time for me to eat. And so we need those signals. So take slow, deep breaths, slow down, chew your food well. That's going to make a big difference. And then, what can we eat? Well, there are probiotics that I've mentioned. They are live microorganisms. They impart health to us. It allows our digestive tract to flourish. It inhibits and destroys toxins in our gut, and it helps clear infections. It can, take care of the imbalances. It helps stimulate our immune system, and it is very protective as far as our mucous membrane. It works through the mucous membrane in our GI tract. Now, these are the foods that are rich in different types of probiotics: yogurt and kefir, cottage cheese, kimchi, fermented tofu, soy sauce, miso, tempeh, and fresh sauerkraut. Now, if you have a histamine intolerance, you do not want these foods because it will make your histamine symptoms worse. And so there are specific probiotic supplements that will help with that. So rotating these, though, would be a good idea. And in order for your probiotics to flourish, you need prebiotics. These are the food that can help our probiotics thrive. And they're basically a type of good sugar, not a bad sugar, that feeds our probiotics. And so these are foods like chicory root, Jerusalem artichokes, flax, oatmeal, onions and garlic, leeks, legumes, asparagus, leafy greens, berries, bananas, honey. Just because I put honey up there, it doesn't mean drizzle everything with honey. Mindful moderation, even with our honey. And then nutrition for good gut health is, it includes minimizing these particular things. Added sugar, as much added sugar. It's amazing how even in ketchup, there's added sugar. In spaghetti sauce, there's added sugar. So either try to make it yourself or find the ones that truly don't have added sugars. I like Primal Kitchen because they really make sure that their products do not have any added sugar. Refined carbohydrates, let's keep that to a minimum, as well as food additives and pesticides. And it is a good idea for all of us to cut back on our gluten intake because the more we eat that, it increases the production of an amino acid, which is a building block of protein called zonulin. And when we eat too much of that, it increases zonulin in our bodies, and it can let the lining of our gut become permeable. So you really want to cut back on that as much as possible. And then if you have any personal triggers, foods that don't make you feel good, then it's a good idea to minimize those. Actually, that's called food sensitivities, and food sensitivities can be resolved. Food sensitivities are a result of having an imbalanced gut community. Okay, so what should we maximize? Well, of course, fruits and vegetables, and your nuts, and your beans and legumes and whole grains, fermented food, and water. Now, just because I say maximize these, know that every body is different. And so sometimes when some people maximize right away, it might cause some GI issues. So maximize slowly but surely. Water is so needed because it helps us with digestion and absorption of our food. So that's why I put that on there. And let's take a look at our little pizza guy here on our left. Our gut community, remember, it's your friends. It's your set of friends. But if you're eating the same thing all the time, like pizza, it's a sad situation. There's not that many people that will come to your party. And if you then include nuts, different grains, different fruits and vegetables, legumes and seeds, and you really rotate them, then your gut community will say, whoa, we can have a party now, because then your gut community will produce different types of good bacteria, and that's what your gut community likes. It thrives with different good bacteria. So The R in better, live gut better, stands for rest regularly. And it's not just nightly rest. I mean, that's huge, but it is also our weekly rest. It's called circaseptan. You know, there's the circadian rhythm, the daily, but then there's a circaseptan rhythm weekly. God knew what he was doing when he created the circaseptan rhythm. So that is important. So I like to say rest every seventh day, but even throughout the day, not just at night, take time to just pause, take those deep breaths, meditate on God's word, give yourself those short little breaks in between 1 minute or 2 minutes to just let your autonomic nervous system just calm down. And then, well, let's talk about food that can help with sleep. So melatonin is found in dark-skinned grapes, your tart cherries, strawberries, they're in season right now, tomatoes, peppers, and pistachios. So you want to eat more of these foods, especially in the evening time. And then also foods that are rich in GABA, gamma-amino butyric acid. These foods, this particular amino acid, it makes you feel calm. So it is your sweet potatoes, your soybeans, peas, tomatoes again, chestnuts, cruciferous vegetables, and spinach. And then magnesium. Now, here's the thing. Our farming practices have affected our soil, so we don't really get as much magnesium from the food that we eat. So if there is something to supplement, that would definitely be magnesium. But these are the foods with magnesium, like dark chocolate, avocados, nuts, legumes, seeds, and whole grains. But rotate these for sure. And in order to help your sleep, not just include these foods, but it's so important to turn off our electronics 1 to 1.5 hours before going to bed. A lot of people will say half an hour. I don't think that's enough. I really think the longer the better, because the blue light really shuts down our melatonin production from being able to rise appropriately. So, but if you really have to be on your computers or your cell phones, turn it to like the amber coloring, or get those red glasses that block green and blue light. Dim the lights before going to bed. That will tell your body we're getting ready for bed. We can't just be working at the computer and then brushing our teeth, taking a shower, and then jump into bed. We have to signal to our bodies we are getting ready for bed. Cortisol levels continue to go down. Thank you very much. And melatonin, you can now rise. It just won't do it. We have to tell our bodies what to do. So do that, or we could meditate on God's word, pray, because that also gets us into that parasympathetic state and bringing down our cortisol levels, getting us out of that fight and flight state, which is that sympathetic. It's another name for sympathetic. And that's going to be so helpful while taking those slow, deep breaths. It brings down the cortisol levels. It's telling your body we are getting ready for bed. So don't forget the acronym in how to live gut and hormone better is to balance those blood sugars, whether you have diabetes or not. E stands for enjoy exercise, enjoy moving it mindfully, not overdoing it. The first T is to trust in the Lord. The second T is to tune out toxins where you can. The second E is to eat well, which includes how you eat, not just rushed. And then R stands for rest regularly. Okay, so do I have any questions? So then there's my thank you, and then my references. So, yes, Pastor Pennick.
So recently we bought some glass containers.
Excellent.
To get rid of all the plastic ones.
Okay, great job.
But they have plastic tops.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
What about that?
I think it's fine because it's not touching the food itself, so you're good there. So great job on that move to changing everything else. Yes, because I don't think there is a company that sells everything, even the covers, as glass. So, but it's not touching it, so we're fine. And we're not heating it up, so then you're fine.
Yeah, these are just for storage.
Yeah, just for storage, you're good to go. Good question. Yes, thank you. Yes.
What about spicy peppers, like habaneros,
Yeah.
Carolina reapers?
Yeah.
That mixed in the food, is it okay? Or
It's such a good question. It depends on where in life you are. So, because I'm in postmenopause, I do know and men have andropause, okay? And so all of us, as we get older, we have shifts in our hormones, and it includes shifts with insulin too. So there are some people whose blood sugars drop easily, and then when they go to bed at night, they might wake up in the middle of the night and say, why am I waking up? It could be because the blood sugars dropped. And then if they look at what they were eating throughout the day, they might say, oh, I had a lot of habaneros, a lot of spicy food. While on one hand, that can help people with diabetes because it helps bring down blood sugars. If your blood sugars have a tendency to drop, then that might enhance the ability of your blood sugars to drop at night, affecting sleep. So if you had it, I just wouldn't have too much of it. I would have it early on in the day. Some people, it can exacerbate their gastritis or GI symptom. So that's where I would be careful. But if you don't have any issues with that, I would continue to enjoy it in mindful moderation. Yes, yes. Ooh, yeah, I know they're so pretty. Yes, they're beautiful, the ones with pastels, but ceramic, it contains toxins in it too. So I always also encourage those who I talk to switch it out.
What kind of dishware? If you're going to use plates, what about plate?
Yes. The ones, what's the ones that we use, Mom? No, the Corel. Corel, that one is okay. They use some type of, I don't think it's ceramic, but it's a different type of material. So, yeah, it's best to not use ceramic as much as possible, even in plates and mugs.
Oh, really? The mugs too?
Yeah.
So glass mugs instead of ceramic.
Absolutely. Glass is always the best bet.
Glass dishes, glass plates.
As much as possible. Or paper. Yeah. I'm sorry? Was somebody saying something here? Or stainless steel. Thank you, Stan. Yes, stainless steel is always a good thing. So yes, there are mugs now that you can get that are stainless steel. Yes, thank you, Stan. Yeah, those are good ones. Yes. Oh, that's a good question. So a lot of my students ask me that too. So it depends on how you look at it. Some are made with black tea, some are made with green tea, some are made with white tea. So different levels of caffeine. So for me, black tea has a lot of caffeine, so that can affect our cortisol levels, that can spike our blood sugars. But the green tea ones, the white tea, if you get the kombucha with those, that will be a better choice. Now, here's the thing. If anybody has a GI discomfort like gas or bloating, and people might think, oh, let me drink some kombucha because it has probiotics. But that particular bacterial strain that might be elevated in you, that is an opportunistic bacteria. It's not necessarily bad. It might be elevated in you, and it might be in the kombucha. And so it might elevate that level, and you might be wondering, how come I'm not getting better? So if you know it doesn't give you any other side effects, then it's fine, but try to stay away from the black tea because of the higher caffeine content. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, I think she has a question. Salt? I am so glad you asked me that question. That is a great question. So my clients in my program, the Gut and Hormone Harmonizer, they're like, what about Himalayan salt? What about Celtic salt? So that's a good question. Let me tell you, those salts have way more heavy toxic metals than iodized sea salt. So when you use sea salt at home, tell mommy and daddy to get the iodized sea salt by Hanes or Morton's, because I looked at a study and those salts were the good salts as far as having low amounts of heavy toxic metals. So sea salt is good for you, iodized. Just make sure it's iodized. And we need salt. We need sodium. Back in my earlier days, telling people to cut back on sodium, I cringe because sodium chloride is needed for us to convert that to hydrochloric acid. And that's why I think we have driven some people to having stomach acid issues too low, because we've been telling them, cut back on salt, cut back on salt. So don't cut back on salt. Enjoy it. Okay, yeah. Iodine, well, it helps with our thyroid health. And we really get iodine from seafood, fish, and let's see, seaweed, that type of thing, but we don't get as much of it in other places. Unless you do dairy, there's some iodine there. So, but it is so needed to have good thyroid health. And a lot of the salts now don't have iodine in it. So that's why we need to be intentional about looking for iodized salt. Yes. Did you have another question, Pastor? Oh, no worries. I'll come back to you. Yes. Ooh, a black salt? Colonomic. You know, I think I came across that and I wasn't curious enough. I need to be curious, so I am so sorry. Maybe the next time I come, I'll have information for that one. But I remember seeing that briefly. But I don't know, I should have gone down that rabbit hole. I go down so many rabbit holes. Yes, I hope I can answer this one. Good question. You know, okay. I know I never go directly to the questions because there's so much in my brain to share with you. So, you know, Ellen G. White had recommended it a while back. And so I'm grateful that I didn't grow up in a household. My parents didn't set that example to have coffee first thing in the morning, right? And there are so many parents that I believe should be setting the example to have breakfast first instead of saying, oh, don't talk to mommy until she's had her coffee. You know, that's like a joke on social media, but it breaks my heart to see that. Okay, so I never got used to that. And then when I got to La Sierra, my first year at La Sierra, going to my English class, I saw two of my guy classmates, and I caught up with them. I said, hey, what are you guys drinking? And they said, oh, coffee. But do you drink coffee? And I said, no. And they said, don't even start. Do not even start. And that just really encouraged me not to. And these two guys were just so nice to say that. But would I encourage it or not to drink? So back to our nutrigenetics. God made us differently. Some of us are slow metabolizers of caffeine. Some of us are fast metabolizers of caffeine. So those who have the gene variation for caffeine, they could get away with it with up to 400 milligrams per day. But I still think that it can elevate cortisol levels. So if blood sugars is an issue, I would look to see how the caffeine is affecting you individually. And then those who are slow metabolizers of caffeine, that increases their risk of developing or having a stroke and having cardiovascular disease. Yeah. So it's really up to you, but I think it's best to keep it to, yeah, as much as possible. Yes. Ooh, is tea bad? Yes, and not really yes. So here's the thing. I like to teach all of you not to label foods as good or bad, because that's like assigning moral value to food. And food shouldn't be viewed as that. We should all have the freedom to look at food and say, yo, you know what? There's ice cream, and once in a while having ice cream, I can enjoy it instead of having guilt of having the ice cream. So is tea bad? Okay, so there's turmeric tea, there is all of these other teas that are so good for you that it's so beneficial, and they don't have caffeine. And then you have some other teas that do have caffeine, and not that it's bad, it's just how often and how much of it can affect your blood sugar levels and your cortisol levels. So, and then too much tea, it has an element in it called tannins that can affect our iron absorption. So, mindful moderation. I always go back to that. But that was a good question about tea. Yes, Pastor Panic.
What about supplements?
Oh, yeah.
Are they helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Or, again, is it
Yeah.
moderation in that category?
Okay, yes. So definitely, I have clients that come to me with a whole laundry list of supplements, and I look at that and I say, oh, no wonder certain minerals are out of balance and vitamins are out of balance because it's just making things worse. So I like to shave it down. There is a place for it for sure. So when I am rebalancing the gut community, there's a protocol that I use instead of antibiotics. And then I have them be on that for a certain period of time, and then we shave it down. But you know, we live in a time and place where farming practices have been negatively affecting our soil. So when people say, just as long as you're eating well-balanced meals, you're eating fine, you're getting everything you need, I beg to differ, especially like where we live and with magnesium, there is a need for those. So when it comes also to supplements, I don't believe in over-supplementing everything. Food first, and then let's see what we can supplement appropriately. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes. That's an excellent point. Very good. So true. And magnesium is the number one mineral that we burn through because of stress. So that one we really need to give some TLC to and attention to. So, yes, you had a question. That's such an excellent question. Is the vegan diet the best diet? And I will say, absolutely not. So here's the thing. It can really work well for several people. So last Friday night at Inland Empire Filipino Church and on LLBN, I've given the talk, is it okay for you to be vegan? Because some people could do well, but some people actually cannot because of their gene variations. And like the vitamin A, the vitamin B12, MTHFR, all of those, if they have any of those gene variations, several years later on down the road, it can be detrimental for them. And what's nice about a vegetarian and vegan diet is that you can easily meet your fiber needs. Okay, while the rest of everybody else, like, oh, it's a challenge to meet your fiber needs, that's not a problem with vegetarian or vegan. But it's a double-edged sword. It is too easy to meet your fiber needs. And again, mindful moderation. And the studies say that when you overconsume fiber, it affects your minerals, such as if you consume too much soluble fiber, you will then decrease the availability of calcium, magnesium, iron, and zinc. Very crucial minerals. And then if you consume too much foods that are high in insoluble fiber, you can affect the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So while I support everybody letting the base of their meals come from plants, I also believe that God allowed us to eat certain meats. In Leviticus 11, he allowed that because he knew that once sin entered into the world, generation after generation, there are a lot of gene variations that have come up. And so if we stayed perfect, if Eve did not sin and our gene variations stayed at the original, then definitely we could all be eating a vegan 100% plant-based diet and be perfectly okay. But God knew that these gene variations would pop up generation after generation. And so I know that he made a way for that, like allowing the feeding of the 5,000, with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Fish has the active form of vitamin A. Some people have that gene variation of vitamin A, and we get that from salmon and from eggs. We cannot get that from just eating carrots galore. You can eat a ton of carrots and turn orange, but if you don't have that right gene variation, you could still have a vitamin A deficiency. So thank you for asking that question. That was an excellent one. Yes, Pastor Pennick.
What about eggs?
Yes.
I heard that they're very good.
Oh, indeed. Back in the day when I was a student, we were told to tell people, it has saturated fat, so it elevates cholesterol levels. Yes, and then later on, it doesn't have as much cholesterol in the eggs. So, things continued to change. So now the message here is that especially when we buy it from farmers who are very conscientious about raising their chickens, it's really one of the nutrient-dense foods that we can eat because especially of the active vitamin A form and choline. Choline is a big issue in the vegetarian and vegan world. If you don't have a gene variation for choline, then not a problem. You could do vegetarian or vegan. But if you have a gene variation, it will affect eyesight, mind, mood, cognition, liver. Yeah, that's the issues with choline. But eggs are a wonderful thing because of those nutrients that it actually provides.
And how many times a week would one? I know it's personal, but
It's true. It's personal. We did an episode for LLBN on my show called Chat and Chew, and I had the students look up to how many times. And, 6 to 8 is actually still okay and be fine because it's not the saturated fat as the studies are coming out. That's not the culprit anymore that we are seeing that affects the cholesterol levels. So things have changed in the past 3 decades. And so I've been having to rewire my belief in what I was taught. So, yes. But eggs are the gold standard as far as bioavailability for protein. It means we absorb all of the protein in egg. And when it comes to other plant-based, meat items, it's still high, but less, but still high. And then when we get to our plant-based food sources, then the bioavailability of protein in plants goes down. So you just need to eat more of that. Yes. Yes. People who are focused on the egg whites, maybe their particular protein nutritional goals is to increase their protein intake. So that's why some people do that, and that's fine. And they just probably don't want all that fat. It's still fat. And so we don't want too much fat either. So, but that's why they do that. And then some are still in that mindset, in the old-fashioned mindset that the yolks are bad for you, when that's where a lot of the nutrients are. It depends. Yeah, there's protein in the white part, and then the vitamin A, the choline, that is stored, especially in the yolks. Yes. Yes. How about what? Brussels sprouts. Oh, wow. Good question. I wish I liked Brussels sprouts. Do you like Brussels sprouts? I am so jealous. You must have that gene variation to like it. That is great. You know, it is actually so good for you. It is in the family of the cruciferous vegetables. So that means it has the nutrients that you need to help your liver work even better. It optimizes, it makes better the process, the ability of the liver to get rid of the bad stuff that we take into our bodies. So eat up on the Brussels sprouts. Enjoy it for sure. That's a great question.
What would go with Brussels sprouts? I mean, having the same effect as the Brussels sprouts. Are there other?
Yes. Okay. So broccoli sprouts would be another good thing. Arugula, your other dark green leafy vegetables, kale, that would be a good thing. And mustard. Yes, yes. The collards, collard greens, and spinach. Yes. So all of those greens are pretty much there in the same category. And then the bitters, like the mustard greens, the turnip greens, the arugula, what's nice about those is that because they're bitters, it makes you produce more stomach acid, and so that promotes better digestion. Yeah. That's okay. Oh my word, yes. That is all over the place. And one of my dear friends, she's like, oh, I'm eating sourdough bread now. And I'm like, oh, really? How come? And then she said, well, they say it's better for you. Who's they? Who's they, right? And so here's the thing. Yes. People think that it's gluten-free, and for crying out loud, no, it's not. The fermentation process has started breaking down the gluten, but it didn't make the gluten magically disappear into thin air. It's still there, but it at least started the digestive process, but it's delicious. Sourdough is great.
What do you think about Ezekiel 4:9?
Oh, my client just asked me that yesterday. And so she said, yeah, what about Ezekiel? And I gave her the same answer. It is sprouted, it is fermented, sprouted, and so the digestion process has started, but it still has gluten. So, but yeah.
So what's the caution there?
The caution, I mean, if we're wanting to bring down gluten load, then I would say just not have it often. I mean, I can't tell people what to do, but I just really think that it's helpful to cut back on gluten because it brings down inflammation in the body, but not to be fearful of it. I don't want to create food fear either, because then that can create disordered eating. Oh, yeah, there are gluten-free choices, but we could enjoy, those. No, I wish spelt was, but it's not gluten-free. Yeah. Okay, we have a question. Okay, great. Okay, yeah. Okay, could you share with me what you love to eat for lunch as far as your entree? Mm-hmm. Let's work with that. Okay, beans. Great. Okay. Yeah. Yum, it sounds so delicious. So you have beans and you have your tofu. So that's good because it is rich in protein. The beans have some carbohydrates in them. Do you have at least a cup of that mixture? Okay, good. Because we all should consume at least 20 grams of protein per meal or more, depending on how tall we are, etc. So if you had that, you had your greens. What I would add to that is maybe a potato or pasta or rice. Because what you're missing there, okay, good. Yes. So I would say you could have like half a cup of the rice and like a cup of your beans, your greens, and then a fruit to go with that. Then that's a perfectly balanced lunch right there for you. It's you were almost there. I mean, you are there, and it's just a matter of making sure you're always having that carbohydrate with it. A lot of people think it's the protein-rich food and the vegetables. So they're actually following a low carbohydrate diet, and then that can have effects on people later on down the road. So, but that was balance right there.
So would that change if your goals are different, or would you consider that same meal to be done in any given goal?
Oh, yes. In whatever goal you have, you really want your meals to have those components: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah. Was there, I saw, yes, okay. I want to reiterate that, yes, 2 meals a day is not a good idea, and I know that Ellen G. White would turn over if she heard me say this, because, and I used to follow that myself. Yeah, right, exactly. So when you're doing 2 meals a day, you're really following the prolonged intermittent fasting. And so you're only eating for a certain window of time, and you're not really able to consume your needs within just 2 meals. Like, let's pretend you need 1,700 calories a day, 75 grams of protein per day. Let's just pretend. You would feel kind of sick trying to cram all that in 2 meals. And when you're not meeting your needs in a day, your body doesn't know if you are mentally stressed, emotionally stressed, being chased by a bear. It just knows that you're stressed. And when you're not feeding yourself enough calories in a day, your body is saying, they're stressed. We need to help them. We should help their blood sugars not drop, so we will raise our cortisol levels. And yeah, so some people will tell me, oh, but you don't understand. The longer I go, I get this clarity of thinking. And guess what that is? It's because they produce so much cortisol, now they're producing a lot of adrenaline at that point in time that makes them have this clear thinking, but that's not a positive thinking. That's not positive. That's not correct. Because the body's thinking, oh, they're being chased. So they actually need to think clearly as to where they're going to go next. So again, the body doesn't know what type of stress. So the longer we go, the more we are producing the adrenaline, the norepinephrine, and it gives you clarity for that moment, but then you are allowing your gut community to go out of balance and create more of the leaky gut aspect. Yeah. So I am not a supporter of prolonged intermittent fasting, but there's 12-hour intermittent fasting, which is reasonable. Okay, and when we go to sleep, we're fasting. When we wake up in the morning, we break the fast. That's why we have breakfast. Okay, Pastor, and then.
When is fasting for maybe a couple of days, a few days, like the Bible talks about?
Oh, yes.
Can that kind of fasting be appropriate?
If you don't have any hormone-related issues, if you don't have diabetes, if you don't have insulin sensitivity, resistance, if you don't have thyroid concerns, if you don't have any of that, maybe that will be okay. So, yeah, otherwise we stress the system out. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, good question. Okay, so we're going to end on this question. Otherwise, we might be here forever. No, just kidding. Okay, but I love answering these questions. So God created our gastrointestinal housekeeper called the migrating motor complex, MMC. And so when we take our last bite of our meal, then this housekeeper starts doing its job from the stomach, which goes all the way down to, the rectum area. So it goes all, it just pushes everything that was not digested, it cleans it all out. And it could vary from person to person. It can be 2 hours, it could be 3 hours. It's different for every single person. So if you do have to snack, then I would say wait 3 hours. Otherwise, if we're continuously snacking every hour, every 2 hours, we're not giving our gastrointestinal housekeeper, the MMC, a chance to do her job or his job 100%, and then that can then continually grow overgrowth of bacteria, and then later on, we wonder why we have gut dysbiosis. So it can be done, especially when your blood sugars tend to drop easily. And that's why I like to do the hair tissue mineral analysis test, because when I look at the calcium to magnesium ratio, if that is high, it tells me that, oh, this individual needs to eat every 3 to 4 hours. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate all your questions. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Dina, Jackie, thank you so much. And thank you, Pastor Pennick. Thank you so much.